welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
Yes, finally. It's exciting.
Yes, we've had lots of scheduling issues and some tech issues, but it looks like everything is smooth now and we are locked in. So Nathan, we were actually introduced by a fellow machine shop owner that we both know and have a lot of respect for. And when I sort of learned your background and where you came from and starting Wolfram, it was just fascinating. So I'd love for you to share that story with us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my background, I started as an engineer, mechanical engineer, and right out of school, headed to Lockheed Martin, got an opportunity to work on the F-16 program, which was awesome.
Cool.
The big bomber plant in Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of started my love of these just manufacturing, all these things. We're doing airframes and the final assembly of the plane. It was awesome. I had some opportunities from there to just fantastic opportunities. Got to go to another military company and be a service and support director. That was a blast, just working with people and seeing how things lived in the field. Had an opportunity to work at a giant world-class, like eighth wonder of the world kind of forging company. And we were making pipe. We were doing the forgings for all the turbine blisks. A majority of turbine blisks in everything flying or ground power generation in the U.S., which was, again, just awesome. And got a chance to run manufacturing there and a lot more exposure to CNC machining, direct operational experience, and thought this is kind of awesome, kind of fun. So I took one more step to a major contract manufacturer. We had 6 facilities around the world.
Wow.
Got to be director of engineering there, and then and then general manager of the namesake facility, and then VP of manufacturing. And what was awesome about that is we had, at the peak, probably just under 1,000 really, really world-class machinists spread out around the world.
It's a big organization.
It was a big organization. I say under 1,000. Wow. It was about 700 people, but a lot of awesome machinists. And, traveling to those facilities and working with those guys, some things became very clear. It's incredibly hard. They're incredibly talented. And I'll say I lived through the 2008, 2009 downturn with that company. So I also learned that a lot of those people, once they gave up on manufacturing or manufacturing gave up on them, they didn't want to come back. And almost none of them wanted to bring their kids into it. And when you're doing something that's really hard and it's working, a lot of people didn't want to change course and bring in a lot of different technology, and a lot of it for good reason. People introduce technology and it doesn't play well together. And in manufacturing, you're responsible for tying it all together. So, I felt like it was some really formative lessons about we weren't going to have enough people unless you start like right at the beginning in your operation. You weren't going to be building in a lot of technology. It was going to be a hard place to be. But that also looked like a lot of opportunity. So I took those lessons and we did try some awesome stuff on like the closed loop feedback controls with sensors and a lot of other technology. I mean, we played with everything like harmonic frequencies and.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I kind of, at a certain point, I decided I wanted to try and build that thing from the ground up. And I had some opportunities to do it, like, close off a building, clear it out, refill it, new job descriptions, and let's see what that looks like. But I wanted to do it for myself. So
Yeah,
got
sure.
clearance for that, and basically started Wolfram around that concept. So little bitty shop, and we started no manual lathe, no manual mill, no mill, no drill press.
Right.
We started with a 5-axis spindle, subspindle, multifunction mill turn, an Akuma Multis.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Okay.
If we were going to do
Jumping
something,
right in.
if we were going to make work holding, if we were going to do anything, we were going to do it on that machine. And
Very cool.
Yeah, just wrapped it in all the technology. So that was 2011, and it has been a ride. But
so 13 years now about.
Yeah, like you always say, the hardest job in the world. And man, is it. But we're still here, and we're a lot bigger, and we're having fun.
So what does the company look like today in terms of people, machines, and what types of parts and industries are you serving?
All right. So we were that one machine, and just the growth was this little bitty kind of eking along, and we had a lot of oil and gas to begin with, which is an interesting diet to try and grow a business around. It's like if you're big enough or you have the contacts to get an awesome chunk of work, you can grow fast. For us, it was tough because there was work and then no work.
Very cyclical business, right?
Yeah. So to fast forward now, we're about 15 pieces of equipment. We're in a 30,000 square foot building that allows for lots of growth. So that takes up about a third of our manufacturing square footage. And it's looking a lot more like what I had in my mind's eye. So it is clean and epoxy floors, which doesn't mean a whole lot, but it helps everybody feel better about where they're at. And if you're keeping it clean and sharp, it's a place that people want to bring their friends, want to bring their family, and coming in and working. So
absolutely. Yeah, and I have been lucky enough to visit your shop, and it indeed is beautiful. But the one thing that I note is there's not people standing in front of all the machines. So tell us about some of your automation and how you think about lights out manufacturing and high spindle uptimes and things like that.
I think that is probably one of our big differentiators. It's what I think a lot of people in the U.S., I hope and want them to lean towards. We try to be super respectful of our team members. And one of the big parts of that, in addition to a clean environment, is we try not to waste their time standing in front of equipment, waiting for it to do something. So we have put a ton of effort into kind of two main directions. So one is a lot of like the closed loop feedback controls. So sensors that are watching out for the machine. So if anything happens out of norm, it can stop the machine. So a lot of times that's why we have people at equipment. Other companies historically where I've worked is just make sure something doesn't get injured. Like be there for the e-stop.
Just there. Yeah, exactly.
And man, that's expensive. And as you stretch people out, it's not that effective. So we have all these sensors and controls to watch for those things if something's going wrong. But then the kind of the other vein is we have machine management software that is watching everything. And when it sees something that the machine needs, it asks for help. So it dispatches someone to go take care of that. So we let our people go and focus on whatever they're focusing on, organizing an area or trying to think of a new way to do something or loading material or changing parts. And the machine will raise its hand and send them a message on their phone when it needs a tool change or a tool is coming up to a change. We try and get ahead of things. If a chip bin is over full, it will actually, before it starts re-ingesting chips, it will send a notification that the bin is almost full. and
Wow.
then it will stop the machine at a safe place and send a notification that it stopped it so that somebody will come and change the bin.
Do you have scales under the chip bins?
So we actually, in that, we have like a laser mic, so it's watching the chips pile up, and if they get
wow,
to
just the
outfeed
distance
level,
from the end of the conveyor or whatever.
yeah, so it's
That's cool.
because they can't, they'll pile up, and you'll get a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things like that where we try and stop the machine before something bad happens.
Mm-hmm.
We can watch our quality system, and if a tool is changed and the next part hasn't been inspected for that tool change, we can tell that machine that it shouldn't start running.
Nice.
Really, really neat tie-ins. Every tool change in the shop is recorded through our software, which we call OnTakt. And with that, we can see changes in trends. If somebody needs to see the work that's upcoming for them in the next, 5 hours or something before they're into shift, they can look and it'll say, okay, LB2 is going to need your help in an hour. LB3 is going to need 2 tools changed in 3 hours. And basically they can see what their work schedule looks like. Not walking around to the machines and checking those.
Sure.
But the machine's telling them, or being able to plan out their shift. So it sounds like I'm kind of harping on it, but it builds a much better working atmosphere for our team, which, leads to longevity and everything else. And it also translates to tremendous uptimes. So yeah, one of the neatest parts about that, and kind of respecting the employee's time, right? Because any of us trying to do something, if we get chopped up and chopped up and chopped up, we're less effective. So
of course. Yeah.
We try and give everybody the most working time they can to focus on things. And yeah, we do that by having the machines reach out about everything. So the tooling in particular is kind of awesome. Every tool change on every machine is recorded in our software, and it lets us automatically identify trends, like if tools are breaking down more frequently. It lets the employees know they can ask what their afternoon or what their evening or morning looks like, and it will say, you've got 2 tool changes in an hour, you've got another one in 2 hours, and then you don't have another one for 4 hours after that.
And is it so what kind of tool life you're getting per insert or per corner or whatever? Is that based on like real-time feedback of how long tools have lasted in the past, and it's like storing that and then predicting how often you should change it out?
It is, yeah. So there's a couple different things. We'll take a guess. We'll take a stab at it in the beginning for what we think it should be.
Yeah.
And it'll notify us if it's falling short of that. And then at any point, we can either automatically or manually go into the tools and say, just accept whatever the current average is.
Right.
So it'll say, like, you're anticipating 280, but you're getting 244. So you can just reset everything to those values.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I imagine this must work best if you have higher volumes. Are you focused on higher volume, lower mix, or?
Those parts do. Yeah. You asked me what we had shifted to, and a lot of the work we've shifted to is longer runs. We're not, millions of parts, but thousands of parts. And, the margins are way lower, but a good healthy diet versus oil and gas, which pays great and then doesn't. Yeah. We found this is an atmosphere that we thrive in. So a little bit of volume helps. But, watching your tool life, it can work in small volumes too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, especially if you know how much life you'll get out of an insert or a tool, even if you're only using up a fractional amount of that on a job, and then you switch to another job, still, I imagine your software can do that. It's like, you have this much remaining based on using X amount.
We have it designed so we have some machines that go back and forth between metal and plastic. And it does a pretty cool deal where if you say that insert is worth 1,000 plastic parts, but 100 metal parts, it consumes a percentage of life based on the number of parts it's consumed. So if I cut 50 parts and then I swap to the plastic and I leave the tool in there, that individual tool will say, I've got 500 parts left to go.
That's pretty slick. So I'm sure people are sitting there running,
trying to think about
what is the software you're talking about? Where can I get it?
Yeah.
So OnTakt is a tool that you guys have built yourself in-house, right?
It is, yes. This is, I love manufacturing. I love software. I believed in machine monitoring from the beginning and tried a lot of different software. And there's a lot of great software out there. People will ask us about things. And I'm like, look, if you're down the path on one, like just keep going. Just like get it in and start benefiting. Yeah. But yeah, we got to a certain point where the things we were asking for to get better were, the first time that these companies were seeing them and trying to work on it. And, you get to that point where you're like, maybe we should just build it for ourselves instead of trying to push somebody else along. So that's where we got, and it's let us tie in, direct machine connectivity and, pushing actions to machines, quality systems, the Caron Engineering kind of virtual operator systems.
So that's the sensor side of things you were alluding to. That's Caron Engineering. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious, sort of the chicken and egg question. Did you envision all these types of things before you started the company, or as you started getting into wanting to do more automated, unattended runtime, you started trying to knock out process variables by bringing in technology and features and functions? Like
very much the latter. Very much the latter. We
got it.
When we did start, I deployed Caron Engineering at several other facilities very successfully. So that was something we completely believed in. Right. And we've since become a distributor for their products also. So we have it just across the board. I'd love, before you go too much further, for those that don't really know what Caron Engineering is, I'd love to give us a entry level, couple minutes on what it does, how it works. Oh, sure. Yeah. It's awesome stuff. Like I could not believe in it anymore.
That's awesome.
In a summary, it's like everything you need to automate, almost everything you need to automate without the robots. So, one of the kind of headline system is called TMAC, Tool Monitoring Adaptive Control. And that one, you put ultra high resolution horsepower sensors on the machine.
Okay.
You hardwire it into the control, and it basically lets you see anything going on with that cut, and anything you can see, you can automate against. So if it is all of a sudden taking more horsepower than it was before, you can pause the process. So you might have a face mill insert break down, and it can stop the process when you've lost one insert and not, the other 11.
Wow. So it's that instantaneous.
It's really, really awesome. So you don't end up, we've all had things like that happen, and normally you end up with a melted fist of a face mill. Yes. And you're lucky if you didn't just eat your fixture and like lose spindle alignment. Yeah. So it's really awesome. It can do, all kinds of different ways it can interact, but that's kind of the core. Then they have a really neat set of systems around shuttling tool information into machines. So like RFID, you measure your tool offline, you load it to a chip, and then move that over to the machine. But what's kind of cool is it can write information back to that tool when you take it out to,
oh, wow.
You've done 40 of your 100 parts on this tool. So you go put it away. And then when you find it again, put it in. It knows that again. They've got software for It's called AutoComp. So basically if you measure something in a machine or outside of a machine, it can look at your statistical rules for that measurement and feed that back to make the compensation adjustments into the machine. So
if it's in machine, it's obviously through probing. If it's outside, it's through a CMM or some other mechanism.
Yeah, anything that can kick out a digital measurement, it can take. So it'll eat like a CSV style format,
right,
and comp it back.
Got
and
it.
It's a nice mature product. So you can be like, I know that there are 10 parts in queue between when I'm measuring and when it's being machined. So it'll adjust it, and then it'll ignore the next 9 parts, and then it's.
Oh wow, that is cool. Yeah.
So it's a pretty slick system. And then the last thing, they've got several others, but the last one that's really cool is they call it MyConnect. And basically what they've done is they have all these super low-level connections to machines. And they've been developing them for over 30 years now.
Oh,
so
wow.
they've got this great library, and they built a development environment that lets you do like a Windows PC-based PLC, kind of. It's like a master PLC. So you can grab modules that say, I want a low-level connection to this machine or that robot or that database or that mail system. And you just kind of drag your things around and write connections and build your own communication automation. So
that's super powerful. Wow.
It is, man. Yeah. If people stop and think about that for a minute, it's incredible. So instead of paying somebody to develop, or, still pay somebody to develop a neat integration, but if you leave yourself a back end to work with MyConnect, then every time you think of a good idea, like, I wish this would check my ERP system before I started this part, or check my quality system, or make sure that the chute is clear over there. You can build all this logic really quickly and easily, and wrap it into how you let your process run.
Yeah. No, I can imagine how that helps eliminate so many process variables, which are the enemy of automation. Right.
Yes. Right. It's, there's so many ways for manufacturing to escape. You have to have tools to track it and knock it out.
Super neat. Okay. So you've been using that, and then it sounds like you're tying that into your software. So they're kind of working in concert together. Yep,
exactly. So we have our tooling, our maintenance, our quality and inspection side, all bringing the information together, dispatching people, organizing it, watching for trends. And then when we need the low-level connection to the machine to tell it, hold up until somebody gets there, we'll reach out with that actual MyConnect layer.
Got it.
So,
wow.
And listen to that virtual machinist, all the while. If it's making adjustments and too many adjustments, then it notifies us. So it's like the more we lean into it, the cooler and cooler the solutions get.
It just builds on itself.
There is a starting place. Some people come in and they're like, this seems like a wonderland. Or they're like, this looks really cool. I could lean into this. And then we show them more and more, and I get more and more excited. And then they're like, now this is
too much.
Too much. This is more than is possible. I don't know that I can get there. But you can. You just have to start. And we keep an open shop, and we love to try and help people along. This will sound silly. I mentioned it before. My father was in manufacturing, and he was very successful doing what my parents' generation did, which was help move manufacturing everywhere else in the world from the U.S. And I feel very strongly that you should have your own manufacturing, and they're awesome jobs. So I'm doing everything that we can to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. and make it fun and make it something we can be successful doing.
Yeah. It's so foundational to everything else. So yeah, absolutely agree with you on that. Well, yeah, fascinating. I'm sure we could go down the technology rabbit hole almost indefinitely. As you've grown your shop and hired more folks on your team, first of all, folks are hard to find, and it sounds like this whole respect the machinist, don't make them do menial tasks. It sounds super smart to me, because I think that's the parts of the job that people dislike the most, are the monotonous sort of just doing the same thing all day long. How have you gone about hiring? What's your culture like?
Yeah.
How's that side of your business? How do you approach it?
We're pretty fortunate with our utilizations and everything that we're leveraged up pretty good, machines versus people. Mm-hmm. So it takes a lot for us to need additional people, and we definitely have, but it lets us be pretty careful about it. So on the interviewing side, they talk to a bunch of people before we bring anybody in. There's not just like a one small entrance where we keep bringing people in and trying to burn them out. We try and pay very well. We subscribe to the philosophy of fewer, better people. Mm-hmm. So we use like the MIT wage index is a good way to see if people have a good living wage in your area. So we kind of go by that to help us set that. And if I'm talking to other manufacturers, we try and look at things like, what is it for one person to live on? Well, that's okay. But if you look at what two people live on with one earner, then now if somebody's not going to show up to work, then that your person is going to show up to work. So there's some small things like that we try and strategize on that front. But as far as the people we look for, people who have solid hobbies in mechanical things, can carry on a conversation, just like sharp people who want to be there and engage, that means more to us than anything.
Right.
Partly because we're training in a lot of interesting and different systems. So sure. It's kind of neutral whether we find a machinist, unless we're looking for like an engineering, they're designing processes. And that's a little different. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we tend to, my wife jokes when I say that we need to add somebody. She's like, you better be really sure you want this person, because people just don't tend to leave. Right. So we try and work hard at that. You can always do better, but it's something to definitely keep in front of us.
Yeah. That's I think that's, of the guests I've had on this show thus far, the ones that I think focus the most on that sort of cultural fit, the aptitude and attitude, and they'll train for the skills. That's a winning formula, and I'm sure I'll learn a little bit more about that sort of. You said it was an MIT sort of income kind of scale system. Can you just share a little bit more about what that's about? Yeah, so if I would search here, but it's going to throw the camera off. It's no like problem. MIT Living Wage Survey, and okay. I think it is through the school. And yeah, the government has all their cost of living indexes, but that's a little different, and they can't change that or adjust it for anything, because kind of the world runs off of that. There's so many investment indices and everything. But yeah, the MIT Living Wage Study it tries to
look at, can somebody actually afford housing in this city or this county or this state?
So it's really narrowly specific.
Right. It's narrowly geographically defined. Yeah. And then also it's like single earner, dual income, no kids, single income, dual. So It's got several breakdowns out to like 3 kids, and you can kind of assess how you're doing. Mm-hmm. So when we're, everybody's been struggling with trying to keep up with inflation and what is that doing to our rates and everything else. And you look at something and you're like, I can't see 10%. I'm not making 10% more. And, those things are brutal. I won't say you necessarily see anything different in the wage survey, but it's a good double check for how things are going up and down.
Mm-hmm. So all right, cool.
Refer.
I'm sure some folks will be looking that up.
There's kind of a funny one. So I have that one, and then I also look at what I call the Chick-fil-A index. So I mean, Chick-fil-A is everywhere. And they do great research and great training, right? Like if you've been there, they do a lot of things well on the training people side, and they almost always have their rates posted, so you can see what's going on in your area. By just every time you drive by a Chick-fil-A, take a look at their sign.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so I use that to see if we're going up or down on any given moment.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's real-time information right there. You talked about moving into this higher volume type of work, and that is something that most shop owners want to do unless they really love specializing in the one-off low volume stuff. How did you go about getting those opportunities, having those connections, building those relationships with customers?
The first part is not going to be super helpful to people. It's only one step better than like I knew a guy. So basically, when COVID came around, we were still pretty heavily in mid-size batch oil and gas. So, 20 to 100 pieces. And that was just kind of the same struggle, slow growth it always had been. And then, not exactly COVID, but the oil price inversion that happened like a month before the COVID lockdown, and should know the date. I'm going to say February of that year. Okay. That took our aspiration of finding repeat parts and moving on from oil and gas, or at least expanding from it. And it moved it to the top of our list because we were sitting there with completely empty equipment.
Wow. Gosh, that's hard.
We had the opportunity to try just about anything. So we did longer run parts. So all of a sudden, yes, I could commit 2 months to doing like 5 combustion chambers for rockets that were 3D printed out of like an Inconel material. Sure, let's.
You mean with really long run times is what you mean?
Really long run times, yeah.
Okay.
And by the same token, at the same time we're doing that, we're doing inexpensive brass parts for super high end drum sets. It was just anything we could try to find.
Right.
And we hustled. We learned some things about ourselves, what we could do and couldn't do. And a lot of it was just like taking the paradigms we have and just wrecking them and saying, we have to try this part.
Right.
And it just, there's no chance. This is the opportunity we have in front of us. And fortunately, as we were, cutting our way through that bog, we ended up coming across some things where they were parts that even in those dark days, I looked at and I said, I don't think I want to do this part. I think it is too hard and too far out of line with the equipment we've got.
Right.
And I told that potential customer at the time, I said, I don't think you want us to do this. Like, I can't be competitive. And I got one of those, 1 in a million shots where they say, so you're saying you could do it? And
so you're saying there's a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance. And
Dumb and Dumber style.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I got to take 2 on that. And I can't believe I did. Mm-hmm. So let's figure out how to do it. And ultimately we weren't that far out of line. And they were just patient enough with us, which was, I think they had massive orders due in like 2 weeks. They had a supplier vaporize on them in a legal.
Oh boy.
Yeah. The company went bankrupt and everything was seized. So, those magical opportunities. So, is there any advice out of that at all? Be ready. And I don't know. That one's hard. I'm not sure the practical advice to take out of that.
Sure.
But yeah, for risk of somebody going down a rabbit hole that they're not prepared to go down.
Yeah.
But I can say, as we have tightened up and brought in the monitoring of everything, and we can show our utilizations and clean the shop and all those things. Now it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. People come in, they like look both ways, and they're like, you've got several spindles to of redundancy for that type, and you've got redundancy here, and all these things are cranking, and I want to have my parts here too. And
right. Do you think that redundancy part is a critical decision point for a buyer, for a engineer, at a company that's deciding where to put their parts?
I think so. If they've been in for a while and they see, okay, you've got that one piece of equipment, that's a risk unless they've already got multiple people running, that piece of equipment at different shops. If you're the redundancy, it's okay. Right. But having a little bit of redundancy, I think, really, really helps. Mm-hmm. I also, you have that conundrum of, if you have capacity to put on the market, then why do you have capacity? So people ask and they want you to have some, but you have that challenge of, well, if you have 40% capacity to give me, then what are you doing? Is it actually, are you that good? Mm-hmm. So part of the way we've laid out is we've laid everything out so we can expand quickly. We have built relationships with distributors around different pieces of equipment that we can deploy very quickly. We have kind of some solutions to fit different markets, but we're ready to go with bus bar power and air to double our size. So we can tell people, if you like what you see, I can prove some parts out for you, and then we'll bring online a piece of equipment for you.
And have you done that in the past, where you did, that system was already in place and you were able to turn on more machines pretty quickly to ramp up for a new opportunity?
We are very close to that.
Okay.
So we moved into this 30,000 square foot in November of 23. So depending where you're airing on this podcast,
it'll be June probably.
Yeah, we're not too far into that. So our final electrical and everything is in. There was a lot of temporary because we had to be running basically as soon as we had the space.
Got it.
But the opportunities have absolutely lined up. So that part's.
And are these opportunities that are showing up because you or someone on your team is out doing sales, or is it word of mouth or?
So this one is interesting. We do have sales guys out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say we have sales guys out there, and then some of the large OEMs that we help with the type of machining. Okay, there's a virtuous circle here. Some of our large OEMs, like your big defense contractors and things like that, they want to get better. They want to do the best they can with the money that they're getting from the taxpayers and everything else. And when those folks see the way we run with the utilizations and the kind of error proofing of the process, once we've got it wrapped up nicely, they are very appreciative of that. So we will go help them get better with their processes. And then
interesting.
Those people end up coming and visiting our facility, and they see it and they say, wow, you know what? I think I've got some opportunities here. So
you're helping them optimize their internal manufacturing capabilities, and they're giving you more work sort of offloaded that they don't want to do in-house.
Yeah. So it's a very...
And is that because you're doing the distributor stuff for the Caron Engineering?
It is. Between Caron Engineering and OnTakt, it really brings some interesting opportunities our way, which is very similar to the classic, help your customer with, design for manufacturing, which people who do that find tremendous success in it.
Yeah, we did that at our shop for sure.
Yeah, that is, partnering with your customer is a winning scenario every time. We have a unique vector to come at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very unique. Very cool. And I just want to put on the record, when I visited and looking at the parts you're making on these, kind of turn mill type machines, but they're mainly like lathe based. Mm-hmm. Your parts aren't round, right? Yeah. They're very much not round parts.
That is the weird thing. Yeah.
And I think that's where you were alluding to with the second chance to do those parts that were just really, not, you at first thought you wouldn't be good at, probably because they weren't round, and you had machines that mostly started traditionally with round.
Yeah, it wasn't a little bit of milling. It's like, this looks like a little 5-axis booger. And
it's like almost exclusively milling. Yeah. So what kind of spindle utilization are you actually achieving?
We will achieve typically high 80s to low 90s.
And that's on a 24-hour day, or?
That's on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week rate.
That is pretty exceptional.
So, it's still manufacturing. If a customer says, whoa, we're over inventory on that, hold it. We're going to get some gaps.
Of course.
On equipment we're intending on running, that's where we tend to be. So
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And that's with very little labor input, just here and there to just support what's needed.
Right. I mean, it is human, it is manufacturing. So all the input of changing tools and loading material and emptying chip bins and changing fluids. But, we'll do drop-in shifts on the weekends. And we can do that because somebody can VPN into the shop. They can look to see what they need to do. Okay, all these machines are running. This one has, TMAC has stopped it for this reason. So I know I'm going to need to plan a little bit of time to look at that. And I've got 6 tool changes. Okay, cool.
Right.
And so it's pretty neat.
That's cool. Have you done anything on the people side with incentivizing, coming in on the weekend to get things running? Is it just overtime? Do you do any? I heard, forget where recently, a shop owner saying that if anyone comes in on a weekend, they'll get a minimum, even if they're only there for 20 minutes, to get a bunch of things set up and just re-going. they'll get a minimum of like 2 hours, on their paycheck.
It's very similar. We give them a few hours extra.
Nice.
So it's like what they've got and then just a plus up.
Yeah, so which is well worth it if they keep the spindles turning.
It's worth it
many more hours.
To them, it practically feels like free money, and to us, it practically feels like free money. It's
That's awesome. Besides spindle uptime, what other metrics do you track as a business to know whether things are going well or not?
Trying to think if I have anything powerful to contribute here. I mean, a lot of the classic financial metrics on profitability. Say, we track safety, but we have a remarkably good safety record right now. I shouldn't even say that on air. That's
that your safety record is good.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to say.
It is, yeah. So, but we're just very, very thoughtful and cognizant about that. Sure, it's interesting. A lot of our metrics are very. Okay, I know what I can contribute to this. It's very much you make your hour, you make your day, you make your day, you make your week, you make your week, you make your month. Mm-hmm. So, we definitely pull everybody together and we brief them on the financials and how things are going and what we're putting into equipment and what we're putting into air conditioners. And so we're very transparent on that front.
Nice.
But the low level machine uptime, every machine is tracking what it's like. It's charting where it needs to be based on what process is loaded on it. And we're ticking off parts to track along that. So if we're missing to that at any point, then it lets us know we've got to make it up somewhere else. So it's a very low level tracking. It's not the next day or a week later that we see how things are going. It's not even writing it up at the end of every hour on a chart. It's in front of everybody all the time.
Right. Yeah, and you can make those immediate adjustments to get back on OnTakt. Right.
Exactly.
That's the name of the product.
Yes. Thank you for using that in context. This time I describe it and people never think tack time again, but
right.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And I've obviously seen the sort of the upward to the right line on your software and showing the dots of when the parts are coming off and if they're meeting the target. Yeah, it's a really clearly visual way to do it.
Yeah. So a lot around that and utilization.
Well, some of the questions I usually get to at the end are what are some of your best strategic moves, best decisions, and I imagine they're going to be around automation in your case. Any other things that you would put on that list?
I mean, I would say a lot of the decisions around people. As I was moving up through my career, I got exposure to a lot of different leaders, and some were terrific, and some were effective. And, we would get things. Oh, gosh. Okay. So manufacturing things like, do you have phones on the shop floor or not? And things like that. So, if I was operations manager and they're like, this is a no phone place and you need to, teach people a lesson about it. Okay. What do you want me to do? Well, anyway, you're going to have to bare knuckle brawl, make this policy happen.
Right.
So I've been through just lousy things like that and just being a jerk. I want to say forced to be a jerk, but there are a lot of things that, as the workforce has changed, have not translated. things that even in prior leadership, I'm not proud to have participated in. And so one of the big things is with Wolfram, we went to just almost 100% an environment of trust. Like, just our default perspective is we're going to trust that the employees are trying to do their best. And with the information that they have, they are going to do that. And, people will be like, it's the process, not the person. And it's hard to live by that. But that is one of our best situations, because, as soon as you turn somebody against you, or they feel like you're not on the same team, that person is burned for good. Right. You don't win them back.
Yeah.
Really, really believing that it is the process, or what else could we have done, makes a big, big difference. So letting go of some of those things that I was indoctrinated in as I was going through school and my initial kind of leadership opportunities, and cutting over to that side, I would say is one of the biggest deals. And, I still talk to a lot of shops, especially when we're talking about like the OnTakt software or TMAC, and people be like, I don't want that person to be able to override the control. Okay, yeah, TMAC can do that. It can, we can take that away from them. Right. Or I want to know if they're doing their job, and, we can do those things, but I don't think that's what it's for. And I think we get a lot farther without it. So, and, the upside of that is, so there's the automation, but we pull everybody together. And I'll say that's another big one. The whole team gets together every week, and we talk about anything, and everybody's ideas are welcome. Because if I ask my operations manager why something's happening, that's like if you ask me about something, it's going to be like a 40% accurate answer. If you ask an operations manager, that's like a 60% accurate. Shop supervisors, maybe 80%. But, unless you have the person who's actually doing it there, you've played telephone game, and it's not what you need to improve. So, right. Automate, but automate with everybody in mind, and all their input has been pretty key to making things successful and getting them to stick very, very fast.
I appreciate you sharing that about sort of people doing the best they can with the information they have. I think that's a fundamental belief in life, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. And applied in the workplace is such a powerful concept, to not burn those people, stay on the same side, feel like you're part of the team.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very good. What would you suggest, as we kind of look to wrap up here, that shops should be doing today to ensure their success over the next many years?
Deal with the thorns that you have as soon as you can. If it's getting people in the right places, do it. Don't wait. Bring in the best people you can. Plan for success. Get a good ERP system like ProShop. Start monitoring, what's really going on at a low level with something like OnTakt. But plan for success so that when you get it, it doesn't slip through your hands. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know there's the whole spectrum of shop leaders that are extremely strategic, and those that are more just shoot from the hip and see what each day brings. And I think more and more the industry requires, and the competitive nature of what we're doing requires that more strategic, longer term, have a vision, have a plan, go for it, and do it sooner than later.
Yeah. And this will sound very, very concrete and small relative to that. But part of planning for success is be prepared with a good maintenance program for your equipment. Like if you find success and all of a sudden you're running, you went from 30% to 50% or 70 or 80% utilization. What will burn you as fast as anything is maintaining your equipment.
Yeah.
So that, and you'll get, if your ERP system isn't prepared to keep your paperwork clean, you'll burn out on one side or burn out on the other. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds like in the weeds, but
no, that's important stuff. These little details make all the difference to a shop, where those details can be make or break, to the success. So,
yeah,
awesome. Well, Nathan, thank you so much for your time today. I know people are going to be fascinated by your story and how you built Wolfram and OnTakt, for that matter. And I imagine if they want to learn more about either of your businesses, how would you suggest they reach out?
Yeah, so our website is Wolfram MFG, short for manufacturing. So wolframmfg.com. And, that's a great way to reach out to us. We've got contact information there. You can always reach out and hit us on LinkedIn or someplace like that.
And is OnTakt a sub-menu under Wolfram?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has its own website also, which is OnTakt. So ONTAKT for tacktime.live, LIVE.
.live.
So,
I like that.
Yeah. So
let's do it live.
Yeah. There are layers there. We are just, like a lot of people in manufacturing, we are terminally nerds. And every time we can weave meaning into something, we do. So even Wolfram is it's tungsten. So off the periodic table, Wolframite. Anyway, just
very fun. Yeah. I love the way your mind works. Well, awesome. Well, thank you for this time today. It was really fun chatting with you, and I'm sure we'll see you around in the future.
Awesome. It's been great. All right.
Thanks,
Nathan.
Bye-bye.